an early projected record for Mississippi State for the upcoming 2023 season. Of course, coming off of a really strong year this past season. Of course, the tragedy of Mike Leach and everything. So who knows what this team is going to look like going forward. But we're going to give you a projection based off of just kind of a rough estimate as to where all of the teams are going to be next year and give you the percentage breakdown for what their record could potentially be. All right, so again, here's the schedule, and we're going to give you these projections now. This is the scale that we use, and you see if it's a 50-50 game, that's a game that I think 40 to 60%, those are games where I think the spread will be less than a touchdown. Under 20 or over 80, those are games where I think the spread will be 20 or more points. 20 to 29, 71 to 80%, those are games where I think it'll be a double-digit spread, 10 to 20 points. 30 to 39, 61 to 70, those are games where I think the spread will be about a touchdown, 6, 7, 8 points, kind of in that range. So we'll start with the easy games. I think you've got a few here. Southeastern Louisiana, Western Michigan, Southern Miss. You know, Southeastern Louisiana is going to be closer to 100%, whereas Western Michigan and Southern Miss would be, you know, down there closer to 90%. But still, these are pretty much guaranteed wins. Should be easy wins for the Bulldogs, and you can go ahead and take those three and count them as wins. Next, we go to really no games in that 71 to 80% range. No games where I think Mississippi State will be favored by 10 to 20 points. But I think Arizona, they'll be favored by about a touchdown in this game. Arizona is kind of an up-and-coming program. They are starting to build some momentum out there. Of course, they played last year at Arizona. Mississippi State won that game fairly easily. This time it's at home. So I do think the Bulldogs will be favored, but not an easy win. I think this will probably be a pretty close game. And so, again, we're going to put it there in the 61 to 70% range. But, again, I think that is a game that Mississippi State will definitely be favored in by about a touchdown. All right, how about games that they're going to be underdogs in? I think Alabama and LSU are both probably games where they'll be double-digit underdogs. If you've watched my other projections, I actually had LSU in that 30 to 39% range, but I wanted to be consistent. You know, Alabama and LSU are both kind of in that top tier. They're looked at as top tier teams going into this next year, and we're not really trying to make predictions in these videos. We're just trying to group the teams together. You know, I feel like Mississippi State has a better chance of beating LSU than Alabama. Not necessarily because I think Alabama's the better team. It's just the matchups, and you know, you look at the history. Mississippi State they can't seem to beat Alabama, but they've had some success against LSU. And so because of that, yeah, I think it's more likely that they beat LSU than Alabama. But just going off of these numbers and these projections, those teams are kind of in the same tier. And so I felt like to be consistent with that, both of those teams should be in the orange. I think Mississippi State will probably be, you know, a 14-point underdog to Alabama and maybe like a 10-point underdog to LSU. So those games are both kind of close, especially with LSU to maybe being in the yellow, but I'm going to put them both there in the orange and say that Mississippi State will probably be double-digit underdogs, even though they'll be at home. That's what makes it so tough. If these are road games, they would definitely be in the orange, but playing at home, you could make an argument that they could be only an 8-point underdog potentially. Again, I'm viewing Mississippi State as in that tier of being a borderline top 25 team this year. And how about games where they'll be about a touchdown underdog? I'm going to go with South Carolina and Texas A&M. I think they're in a pretty close tier with these two teams. And again, I've said this before. I think Texas A&M is really going to turn things around this year. I do expect them to be a top 25 team. But the fact that these games are on the road, that's why they're in the yellow. If these games were at home, they would be considered 50-50 games for me. But playing on the road, I think they will be about a 6 or 7 point underdog in both of these matchups. So yeah, I think those are games that Mississippi State will be underdogs, but not huge underdogs. They'll have a chance for sure to win those games. So you kind of look at the rest here: Arkansas, Auburn, Kentucky, Ole Miss. Those are your 50-50 games. They'll probably be a slight underdog in the road games, Arkansas and Auburn. Auburn's kind of tough to figure out. We don't know how good they're going to be. And they'll probably be a slight favorite against Kentucky and maybe Ole Miss. Ole Miss, they might be underdogs in that game. But again, those are your 4 50-50 games. So we average this all out. We use 50% for those games. For South Carolina and Texas A&M, we're going to use 35%. Arizona, 65%. We average those games out. We count the green games as wins. LSU and Alabama are counted as losses. And when you put all the numbers in, the projection comes out to be 6-6. So a 6-6 projection for Mississippi State, closer to 7-5 than 5-7. If we did change, say, LSU to be in the yellow, that would up the projection to 7-5. So they're really close to being at 7-5. But at the end of the day, again, with all these numbers put in, the projection for Mississippi State in 2023 is 6-6.